Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's show, we're going to repair the weeping willow that's been weeping because of the critter on the peninsula. The critter got to the peninsula, chewed away the base. Yeah, we're going to do an air layer / root layer. Yes, we'll give it a go. If there's one thing that's true about my bonsai, I never have enough room. So I made this workbench a few years back, and it was in a really small room, and it served its purpose. Now it's in a bigger room where I have more room to grow and move, and I still don't have enough room for all the plants. We're going to be putting this willow in here to try to recover it. We're going to keep it indoors. It's had 8 weeks of dormancy, and if I put it up here, I can move all this stuff. I have a spot here, but I need to expand my room anyway. So we're going to expand the workbench. We're going to put it out 2 more feet to the left, where I can put this big heavy beast. We'll put some supports on there and we'll be able to have this up here, and then we can angle some of these lights. I'll have to get one more light over here to give this thing some light. So we have to go ahead and add a couple pieces of wood out here to extend this shelf system. So it's time to go to the garage and look for some wood. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend a little bit of a shelf out this direction. Now, if I just put a board right here and we put a lot of weight on here, there's not enough support there to hold this board, this one alone. So I made my first board longer, so it goes on the back here, which is a 2x4 like this, and then it goes all the way to the center of the shelf where I can connect it in there. There we go. And we'll extend this out to 2 feet. Then the other one will go here. And we'll put some cross beams in there, and we'll have ourselves a shelf. Got the back support on going all the way to the middle. This one goes out to the edge of this. So it's pretty strong. But without this pillar here, this still would have been drooping down, sagging down, and with this heavy pot I'm putting on there, I needed a lot of strength right here. So this is just on by a couple of screws. I can always take this down in a matter of minutes if I ever have to have more space back in my room. I can shift this whole thing over that way in my room if I need to. Right now it comes right about to the curtain, so it's pretty good. So we're going to get a couple of crossbars up here and make our shelf that can go out to here. And I can go get the tree right now. And actually, if I have a boot tray, I could put it right there right now. There we go. Fits on here. Gotta make this a little bit longer this direction so we have more support for this guy, but right now it's not going anywhere. It actually solidified the actual workbench a little bit more too. So this will be able to sit here, and I'll be able to get one of these guys right here, these lights right here, and give it some direct light right there. This isn't a big enough boot tray. I'll get a bigger one, but I have room for 2 of these back to back, here and out here. So I can get some bigger boot trays, but if I put that one right there, right here, the holes are in the center. If I water this guy, it's going to drain into the boot tray, and I won't have to worry. And I can move this guy too now. This could go back here. This is just that log that I have some mysterious plants in there. Put another boot tray back there, and I can water this. And I water this a little lightly, that a couple of drips on my cement floor is not going to be a big deal. Phase 1 is done. Super simple, just a couple extra pieces of wood. I'll work on these trays to make sure I have the right kind of tray size. I'll move this over here. I got my willow here now, starting to warm up here in the plant room, and still the soil's still cold from yesterday. It's not completely warmed up room temperature yet. Still take another day perhaps. We'll get one more light because I moved this light away from this ficus over here. So I got this growing right there. We'll add another light, and yeah, we are set up for a little bit more space. And then if I need to, here's the other one that the critter ate. We're going to toss that away. toss that away. But if we need to put some other plants, I've just made room for at least a couple, 2, 3 more pots on the side here. Again, if I move this and put a tray back there, I could get anywhere from 3 to 6 more of these size pots back there. So always needing more room, making more room in the plant room. So actually it makes more room on my bench so I can actually work on trees up there, so I can move stuff around to my heart's content. So there we have a little quick addition, a little makeshift shelf to give me more room, and I don't think I'll hurt myself going around this corner too much. All right, now we got to work on that tree. What are we going to do with that tree? This is a beast of a pot. There we have our bonsai on a peninsula. And there is the critter chop. So the nice thing about having it indoors for the last couple of days, you know, I had a little bit of grass in here that was growing, which we're going to get rid of this year when we repot later on after the air layer hits or doesn't hit, we'll see. But that means there's growth, you know, it's warmed up in here, nothing's frozen in here, the roots of the grass has survived, I'm assuming the roots of the tree have survived. So now we're going to be able to kind of clean this out a little bit and try to work on an air layer. So let me get a close-up here again of what we're working on, and we'll get started on that. Here we go. The tree has been chopped all the way around. So when we make an air layer, typically we'll take a part of the tree and we'll take away the bark and the cambium layer all the way around. And we're going to wrap this with some sphagnum moss, some saran wrap type stuff, and then we're going to hope we're going to get some roots from right here. So that's what we're going to do today. We have to go ahead and get a sharp tool to kind of clean all this up, and then we're going to get our sphagnum moss, but we're going to first get rid of some of this dirt down here and kind of see what we got to work with. And as I was playing with this just the other day, I noticed there's a fair amount of small roots in here, and some of that might be from the grass I put in there. Incidentally, the grass was an experiment. I don't want the grass ever to completely take the nutrients away from the bonsai tree, but I don't have a lot of success growing moss, and so I threw some grass seed on here just to see, get that little peninsula of grass, the tree growing in there. And the tree still grew fine. The pictures I have of this that I showed in the last show, and I can show you some more right now, the pictures I have of this are just from this summer. After I cut this thing in the summer, it just took off and it grew super fast, super long. That's what all the leftover growth is here on this now. But nice and growing and green and lush. I could probably trim this back 2-3 times a year and continue to get growth. Multi-flush tree for sure. This one always is going to grow some more foliage. Alright, so I got about an inch out, and I'm going to see if I can get a close-up of the root base for you as well. Kind of a nice thing to show, because I talk about on this show a lot, and a lot of people of course share the same information, is that we're always trying to create this radial root pattern. This nice pattern of roots that goes around the tree and flares out. So I often put my hands like this in a video. You want to see all these roots nice and even going out this way. They're going to be flat. We don't have a tap root on our bonsai trees. They're all going to grow out. Let me get a close-up of this root system. Okay, I'm going to give you almost a 360 turn here. I got a little extra light just sitting right on the pot, just to give you some more indication of the root structure down there. It's still hard to see. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue this once around, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab the tool here and show you guys what I'm talking about. So a little hard to see still on the camera, but I've got this root coming out right here. I've got a really nice big thick root coming out right here, and as I spin this back around, I've got some fine roots over here again. There's a root there and there as I showed you. This one's a little bit more in the dark because it's the other side of the light. Let me see if I can move the light around here now. There we go. There's some roots right there, some roots squiggling out right here. If I twist the tree a little bit more, there's some roots growing right there, straight out from the tree. A little bit more of a gap here. but it's actually just lower down. There's a root right here in the air right now, right there, right there. And so there's the roots, and so there's a lot of roots in there, and a lot of them are going straight out, so not too bad. But the squirrel got down there, or the mouse, the mole, the weasel, who knows what I've got crittering around. They got right down there to those roots. So I don't know what's going to pop up from those spots, if anything, for future feeders, suckers that will turn into a tree or a multi-trunk, or who knows. But the root system I think is pretty solid, so we're going to hope for the best. So again, we're going to put some sphagnum moss in here. We're going to scrape this clean all the way up, make sure this is all nice and clean, and then we'll put some sphagnum moss, some saran wrap type stuff, a little root hormone powder, and we'll be good to go. So I just cleaned off my knife, and this is about the top. The top of where I want to cut this off. He actually left me a little bit of trunk on this side. As always, when using sharp tools, please be careful, everyone. Gonna go up, away from my hands. So we're just gonna continue to clean this up. So nice base where it consistently can spread out and hopefully get some roots. A little bit of green there, a little bit of cambium still left. So I gotta do this because the tree's waking up, because I've had it in my plant room for a few days. It's waking up, and this top portion now is not getting any water. So hopefully it wasn't too late, but weeping willows are super easy to propagate, and you give them a lot of water and you're going to probably have some luck. All right, so we've trimmed around up here, everything all cut up, ready to go. Let's get the rooting hormone, our sphagnum moss wet, our saran wrap ready, say that fast 3 times, and we're good to go. All I did was take some of my sphagnum moss that I sifted earlier this fall, and then I went ahead and put a little bit in this other bucket, and I've already doused it with water, and so it's all nice and moist in there, and we're going to use that for wrapping around the tree. I bought a roll of this saran wrap stuff a couple years ago now, and as you can see, I have a lot of air layering I can do, or wrapping any kind of stuff. So we're going to use that to wrap around. You could also use a baggie. If you cut open a baggie and put it around there, you could use that. And I have some rooting powder here, hormone rooting powder that I've used in the past, which I think with some success. So we're going to go ahead and sprinkle that around the top here, and then we're going to put some sphagnum moss around the roots, and we're going to get this started. So I have my rooting powder. I have a wet washcloth. I have a spoon, and I also have some old not used paintbrush foam to see what's going to be the best way to apply this. But what I want to do is I want to wrap this around here to kind of get the tree moist. Get some water on there. And that drip down. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and pour some rooting powder in here. And then I could just use my fingers, but I think I'm just going to try to dab right here. I'll work my way around. And you see the root hormone fell to the bottom portions all by itself, so I don't have to worry about that. We got some root hormone there. I'm certainly using more than I probably need. There we go. So we got some rooting hormone on there. Pour the rest in the bottle, so that's good. So the rooting hormone is in place. My cuts are done. I got my saran wrap ready to go.
So now I just need the sphagnum moss. So this might be the hard part, holding it in place. This is where a baggie would come into place, or a pre-made shape, if you will. Okay, so I was able to get the first layer there. My cut's right below this sphagnum moss right here, but I want to get this first layer of wraparound so I know that I'm going to be able to get some around. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that right there to see where it's all wrapping around there. And then before I close this off up here, I want to add a little more sphagnum moss to make sure that that sphagnum moss is going to keep that edge moist where the roots are going to hopefully grow. So a little bit more. There we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this ready. I go the same direction so I don't undo anything I've done. Pull a little bit tighter this time to get a nice secure fit. And we'll go ahead and cut the extra again with the sharper scissors. All right. And I'm going to come up here at this last section and make it a little bit tighter around the top. I'm going to grab enough to go around one more time. And I'm going to make this, more secure on top here. Looks like I have a pretty good wrap around there. Got sphagnum moss on the inside. I've got my sprayer here. Just some water in here. And so I'm going to give this just a good watering. I haven't watered this tree yet since it's been inside. But I'm going to go ahead and just give some water on the ground layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and water the inside of this baggie here a little bit. The sphagnum moss was all wet, but I want to make sure there's some water in there so it's super moist in there. It's going to drain out of the bottom because there is holes on the bottom. It's not securely tightened by tape or anything on the bottom. So anything I put in there, it's going to get inside there. And there we have it. There we have it, a relatively short process today. We were able to get this done pretty quickly. So we've got our wrap around here. It's going to keep that nice and moist in there, and hopefully we get some roots growing from about here down to the bottom, and then we'll keep watering the bottom to keep the bottom going. And now I'm just going to go ahead and up here and I'm just going to do a little bit of trimming. I don't need the length on this tree by any stretch. So I'm just going to cut these shorter. This branch back here I feared was not alive. I don't know if it is. I don't want any energy being wasted on any of the things that it doesn't need to be wasted on, because all of this structure later on is going to be developed later on if the air layer even takes hold. So this branch broke off here while we were working on this. This one back here is dead from there on up. This one here, I think it's dead from there on up. No cambium layer. There is still some green down here, so this could bud right here. We could still get a new branch that comes right here, so I'll leave that here. And then these guys, again, I just don't need them as big. I'll leave them about like that. Now here's another I mentioned this in my last video. The trouble with willows is you'll get dieback just randomly and don't know when it's going to happen to which branch. And right here, see this branch right here? Looks like it's death to right there, but there's some viability right there. That's all dead. What I just cut off was dead, so it doesn't need to be there. This one died right here after we cut it before. It's okay. It had some new growth right there. So we've got green. We've got that kind of reddish, orangish, and there's some green and yellowish tints. This is all hopefully still viable. Some nice movement. It's a third year, almost a third year cutting. 3, almost 4, I think. Cut in 2017 for sure. So coming up on 4 years ago this spring in 2021. And we'll see what happens. Cut off here by the critters. Don't need that. And we'll just see what happens. We'll put it back over in its spot here in the plant room. The light's on it. We'll keep it moist. We got nice 12 to 14 hours of light in the room. It's warmer in here. It's slowly waking up thinking, whoa, but didn't have much thawing to do. And with the extended light now that it's getting, because it was outside getting less light, now it's going to get more light and heat. And we'll hope that we can get ourselves a salvaged bonsai. Maybe 2. Maybe this will root out nice, and maybe some stuff down here will survive. And we'll see what happens with the root structure after that. We'll just keep it watered a lot. There we have it. I'll stay back here so you have a little backdrop to see the spin here, because my plants make it hard to see. There is the weeping willow on the peninsula air/root layer. It's an experiment. This could fail miserably, but if it works, awesome, because I was just going to end up having to chop it off and throw it away anyway, or just try to root it later. So we'll see if this style of rooting will work. We'll keep it moist. Time will tell. Time to put the weeping willow back in its new home. Now that I have a drip tray, make sure that those roots again in this front layer are all nice and grown. And so the roots do stay alive, I'm going to probably start digging up the soil a little bit and getting rid of some of the grass slowly but surely. I don't want the grass to be making this tree fight so hard for life. So we're going to get rid of any of those grass remnants that are in there. Not too many of them. But again, it's showing life under there. Things are waking up and doing quite well. As long as I have some nice sifted sphagnum moss that's now wet because of the air layer I did, this is a good time for me to go ahead and cover up some of my recently potted trees. So the sphagnum moss in the surface of this tree here with the on top of the bonsai soil is going to go ahead and keep the bonsai soil a little more moist a little longer. It's going to retain some of that moisture. I might not have to water as much. The layer of sphagnum moss also provides a little bit of filtration for the water that I'm using. I'm using fish tank water for all of my trees. I've likely mentioned to folks before, but I do have several fish tanks at my house here in the basement, in the plant room. Keeps my humidity relatively nice. And the fish water is fertilized. Got some fertilization with the natural bathroom habits of a fish, so we have some water. There we go. So now I got some sphagnum moss. I'll go ahead and give this a little bit of a water. Hold that in place. And that's going to keep the tree really nice and moist. This watermelon seed ficus really likes the water. I have yet to overwater any of my watermelon seed ficuses. Got some water dripping out the bottom now, which means we are good. So we got some nice water in there. It's going to keep it nice and wet for the coming months in the drier indoors, right? We're trying to get the humidity up here. This sphagnum moss, as it keeps the rest of this tree moist and more water here, also when I mist it, every time I mist it, keep things more wet and more moisture overall in the room. So we'll put that back on the bench and grab another one. You'll notice on my Fukian tea, I had a dropped leaf there from my jade show. And the Fukian tea has a whole bunch of dried leaves on the surface here. All these dried leaves came off this year when it came into the plant room. A lot of times people will ask when they get the ficuses from our workshops in the Minnesota Bonsai Society, they'll bring those trees in for the first time in the fall and they'll see a little bit of little yellow discoloration, some leaves will fall off. And with many ficuses, for those of you that don't know, they lose their leaves. So they have a tendency to drop their leaves when they get into some different environment. They're like saying, whoa, what did you just do? You moved me. I was happy where I was. So all these leaves right here what fell out in the plant room. This is my Fukian tea. Able to clean up the soil a little bit there. So the Fukian tea we'll do an episode on later on. I'm asking for advice on the Fukian tea. I've asked before. But the Fukian tea, I did a February show where I pruned it back and it didn't grow a quarter of an inch between that February prune until middle summer. And then in the middle of summer, it all of a sudden woke up and said, here I am, and then it takes off. So as you can see on this plant right now, it's a little bit all over the place again. The leaves or the branches in the middle to late summer absolutely went wild. And I haven't cut it. I haven't cut any of these this year. I just brought it in, left it in here. It was very thick with leaves. And then a whole bunch fell out, which I just plucked off moments ago. And now I've got some sphagnum moss again for this tree. I want to make sure that the water that I am using, even though it is fish water from the fish tanks, I want to make sure that I get a little bit of filtration when I water the trees. And so the sphagnum moss offers that layer of moisture retention, but it also will help to filter the water that's going through this pot right now even one more layer. Keep out some of those, any of the chemicals that are left in the water after being in a fish tank for a week or more. I cycle my water in the fish tank once every week, bring down 5 to 15 gallons of water to replace my tanks. Sometimes I'm changing water, sometimes I'm just adding water. And then I take water with my recycled juice bottles and I water my plants. So I have a little bit of fertilizer every time I go. I'm due for a Miracle Grow spray, but we're not going to do that right now. So there is the Fukian tea with branches all over the place here, and it looks healthy again. The leaves are perky, they're a nice dark green, everything is hardened off. Even some of the tips that were not as woody before, they're starting to get a little bit woodier. We did lose about a third of the leaves, so this was even thicker. And so there is the wild and crazy Fukian tea with branches everywhere, coming way out to here towards the camera. You can't even see back over here. So here's the leaf structure back over here. And this, we lost a third of its leaves. But we're not going to do anything with that right now. We just covered it with sphagnum moss, and we're going to put it back on the shelf. One thing you're going to want to be careful of when you do add sphagnum moss to your plants, like I did here. I did a couple of them today, so I didn't think I had enough left over, but I did have some to put over here on my my brush cherry ficus. So this one right here now has some sphagnum moss on that one. And then the other ones we did up here was my repot of my watermelon seed ficus from about a month ago. Incidentally, an update for you. I will put this in front of me so you can see a little bit better. This branch right here taken off. This right here, new growth since the transplant. All these green, lighter green ones over here, new growth since the transplant, or the repot, I should say. So we repotted this not the best time of year because of the roots were all dragging out of the wood by about 6 to 8 inches of roots just trailing along. So we put them in a bonsai pot instead of my log, and now it's looking pretty good. We got that rock that we left in there. So we've got the sphagnum moss in there now. And then I also was able to sphagnum moss the Fukian tea back here with all the wild and craziness. Oh, and incidentally, a couple days after the last filming when I was working and I was teasing this Christmas/Thanksgiving cactus. Look what happened. It's opened up. It is nice and bright and lovely, and I've got my bud. Only one on the whole plant, but it's adding color. It's adding Christmas color or post-Thanksgiving color. Either way, it's pretty. So there you have it, some sphagnum moss. But what I wanted to remind you of is be careful watering now too, because before when I would water, I just have the bonsai soil, so I could squeeze my my water, my jug. I could squeeze my water into the plants and know exactly how much water I'm putting in there, which I still will know by how much I squeeze in there. But a lot of water is going to be soaked up with the sphagnum moss. In the sphagnum moss, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's soaked up into that. So I have to make sure I give it a good dousing at least once a week down here, so I know those roots are getting through, watered through and through. A lot of people have been talking too about taking their pots and they'll just put them right into a bucket of water or a tray of water and let them in there for 5-10 minutes. Let that water just percolate right up on top. And then you get that totally doused of water. All the roots are watered down really, really well. Put them back on your benches and they're going to dry up in this, again, indoor heat. Even though it's more humid in my room right now, they're drying up pretty fast. But even that kind of watering style will help as well. And then you won't have to worry about missing. And then, of course, the trick that a lot of people talk about, if this was completely dried out, and even though I have a rock in here to make it a little heavier, if this was completely dried out and I go, oh yeah, okay, it's about this heavy, and then you douse it with water, you go, okay, that's what it's like when it's totally wet. And then if you pick it up a couple days later, if you notice it's a little bit lighter, you can kind of get a feel for your plants. When you're looking at your plants every single day and you're watering your trees daily, weekly at the max, but usually daily in the summertime anyway, but every couple days down here, at least once a week for sure, with most varieties, you get a real good feel of what that pot feels like when you lift it up and put it back down. So get a sense for that. You'll get a sense for how wet your trees are. And of course, if you ever think you watered too much, you'll notice this is on a down curve just because I have a sloppy setup here right now, and this one's kind of curved. If you curve your pots a little bit, raise them up with a little bit of a wedge or something, the water will all drain down and drain out better, so you know you're not going to have the trees sitting in water. However, again, the watermelon seed ficus that I've had has been sitting in trays of water and the roots just keep going like crazy. So the watermelon seed ficus love that. The willow over there would love that. You could have water and it wouldn't matter. You wouldn't have to tip up your pots. But some of the other varieties that you want to have dry out, don't be afraid to tip your pots. So there you have it. A little extra kind of an update on the repot there, and a little update on the flower, and some sphagnum moss to kind of keep my trees even more moist and better filtration with the water I'm using. And now the hardest part about bonsai, waiting. Yes, tick-tock, can't wait for things to happen in the plant room, can't wait for weather to get warm already, even though it's only December. We're about halfway through December and I'm already wanting it to be spring, but we have to be patient with the bonsai. It's a thing I'm still continually working on, is to take our time. Sometimes we don't have a choice and we have to do things out of season, or things happen, accidents happen, we forget something, the critters eat our trees, and we have to act now. We'll see. That air/root layer might be a complete bomb. But if it's not a bomb, I spent about an hour working on a tree that I love to do anyway, and hopefully it'll do something really neat in the future. And it's a learning process to see if I can air layer that close down to the root system and see if I can get any suckers to grow either. That does it for another show. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you click like and love or heart or whatever. Tell your friends about Dave's Bonsai. I can't wait to see you on the next show. Comments, questions, concerns, always throw them in here and I'll type you a message back. And I got some great inquiries the last couple of shows I put out, so things I'm going to be doing some of my own personal research on and seeing if I can find some of those answers and learn for myself. Some species that I have that I haven't done shows on yet, that I'm still learning about. So we'll have those hopefully in some future episodes. So thanks for the emails, thanks for the comments. I do appreciate them and hope you continue to enjoy the show. Happy mid-December, everybody. Happy holidays wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Stay safe and we'll catch you on the next show. Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into two shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to. Try and get rid of those air pockets.